Joining us today in our ADN TV studio to give us further perspective on the political situation is Abdirizak Aden. Mr. Aden was an advisor to the former president of Somalia. He was also permanent secretary to the Information Ministry. Thank you for joining us today, Mr. Aden.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Please tell us about the strong reaction from the international community.
Well, I think this is the first time that the international community is basically very furious about the political development of Somalia. And what you see is that the international community is quite frustrated with the issue of lack of political agreement between Somali leaders. You have seen do some red meeting between the president of Somalia and also FMS leaders, but it was some sort of lost opportunity to sign a real consensus and political agreement, and it was lost opportunity to form some sort of a national unity government if Farmajo was committed for one person, one vote, because the current electoral law and the time frame left of the government's mandate, you can't achieve one person, one vote. So you need some sort of a consensus and a political agreement. Of course, they appointed a technical committee, but for now, the international community is quite frustrated with only 3 federal member states appointed the members of the technical committee, and instead of moving forward, what you see is the removal of the prime minister, and the political crisis deepens in Somalia. So that is why the international community is much more furious about that. Remember, historically, Somalia has been placed under Chapter 7 of UN Charter 1992, and what it means is that the UN and Security Council has a mandate to maintain and protect the fragile peace and stability of Somalia, and that's why you see they are pushing towards federal government of Somalia. They need to develop some sort of consensus and a roadmap to organize the elections on time.
The Somali government seems to have pushed back a bit on the international community. Both the Information Minister and the acting Prime Minister, Mr. Guled, have talked about Somalia's sovereignty. What do you make of that?
Well, it is in theory, Somalia is a sovereign country, but in practical, the issue about security, funding for your in order to have some sort of complete sovereignty, you need to fund your own national army. You need to have a control over the country, and most of this, the UN and the international community is trying to push towards Somalia stands on its feet. And you see almost 22,000 African Union troops present on the ground. So as long as Somalia is not able to control its security and also have an opportunity to have a maturity in terms of political process, you will see this kind of pushback from the UN. The best way for Farmajo and also the government to defend the sovereignty of Somalia is that to develop some sort of political agreement and consensus building with the federal member states and also with oppositions, so that the fragile peace and what is historically good with Somalia was timely election, but also peaceful transfer of power. President Farmajo has an opportunity to defend his legacy, and it's up to him how he want to be written in history books, whether he want to be written as the president who has destroyed the fragile peace of Somalia and its stability, or the president who has developed some sort of consensus and defended again. The international community and Somali government has made tremendous program for the last 3.5 years. The issue of debt relief, the security reform, fighting anti-corruption, all that President Farmajo administration has made some sort of progress in those areas. But at the same time, what you see is that a tendency of trying to ignore when it comes to holding election on time. The elephant in the room is the Somali Federal Parliament, and it seems that the parliament, majority of them, want to make unilateral extension, and President Farmaajo more or less is accepting that to have some sort of an extension. But the international community has signaled out that they will not accept any unilateral extension by the parliament and the mandate of the president without building a consensus. So again, if the President Farmaajo want to defend the sovereignty of Somalia, they need to come up together and also build some sort of consensus and have a tangible roadmap how to achieve an election on time.
What are the possible outcomes of this standoff between the federal government and the federal member states?
Well, there is a two scenario. One scenario is that that the federal government of Somalia and FMS leaders agrees on election modalities. Of course, because of the remaining timelines, it is not enough to hold one person, one vote. So the option is that forming some sort of a unity government where federal member states have representation and have competent members, and then you extend the power, the mandate of the government for 2 years. Or if you are not able to reach that kind of consensus, then you have to do what we call indirect elections. But at this time, it has to be modalities which is more near to the one person, one vote. And I think we have visited that with previous discussions. At the end of the day, the international community is not willing to impose a solution on Somali political leaders, but it is up to Somali leaders to decide. And it depends also what President Farmaajo's decision on how he wanted to be written in the history books of Somalia. If he listens the hardliners, advisories, which are telling him you can do extension of 2 years and extend the mandate of the government for 2 years unilaterally, then he will have a tremendous challenge from the international community, and the international community will not recognize. And some of the oppositions, all of the oppositions, agree on they will not work with President Farmaajo and the parliament. So what we will see is a political chaos. But if President Farmaajo wants to defend his legacy, I think there is a good opportunity for him to build some sort of consensus, push back on hardliners, advisors, and tell them, hang on a minute, let us push towards an agreement and with the FMS leaders. And I think most of the opposition are willing to listen. How do you make some sort of technical extension so that the elections will be possible? So again, it depends how President Farmaajo wants to exercise his power and how he wants to make some sort of a compromise in line with the national interest of Somalia. And again, the best way to defend sovereignty of Somalia is that building a political consensus and making an agreement, a timeline, how to hold the election in Somalia.
Thank you for joining us today and lending your expertise, Mr. Aden.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.